We are working on Form 5B, and we have listed our processing steps from Form 3. We have identified our hazards from the reference hazard database. And we're going through and discussing the elements of the decision-making tree and thinking about the implications of the questions that we're asking. We've made it from column 2 to column 5, and we're still in the process of thinking about column 5. So let's just start this again here. At column 5, we're asking the question, is the processing step listed designed to eliminate or reduce the hazard to an acceptable level? So we were working on the hazard cooking, and cooking, yes, should be sufficient to kill off our pathogen when using an appropriate temperature and time application. So if we have answered yes, it is a CCP, go to column 8, and we're going to list out our CCP. Now this would be a CCP. Now it would be our first CCP, so CCP1, and it is a biological one, so CCP1B. Now if this was a physical one, physical hazard, I'd be listing it as CCP1P, but in this case it's biological. Now, let's say, for example, I wasn't cooking here, but I had, instead of cooking, I'm going to have mixing. Now, let's say this is the hazard that's listed. Biological hazard, pathogen survival due to improper time and temperature application. So we could be mixing. I'm thinking of times when people are mixing ground meat mixtures, and the mixing action itself can increase the temperature from the machinery and from the physical friction of the material. It can increase the temperature and allow for bacterial outgrowth during the mixing step. And depending on how long that mixing step is, it could be sufficient that you have a time temperature combination for that bacteria to grow out. Think if I'm using my ground meat mixing as an example, we know bacteria is extremely likely, so high prevalence, and we think about the severity. That bacteria could be E. coli 157H7, which kills people. It could be salmonella, which could cause a high level of gastric distress. And so if we use ground meat as our thought example here, it would have a high impact, high risk rating. Here's our question. Does a GMP control this hazard? Now you could argue if I'm mixing ground meat, I could be doing proper temperature control on that product. I could be blending ice into that product. I could be using a thermostated mixer that pumps glycol or a cooling agent into the outside of the mixer to keep the temperature down. But in this case, for the purposes of this exercise, let's say no. Continue to column 4. Let's again think of our hazards here. Is it likely that the contamination would occur in excess of the acceptable level? In ground meat, absolutely. So we're going to type yes. In column 5, is this process designed to eliminate or reduce the hazard? So thinking of mixing, no, it is not designed to eliminate the hazard. Now, in our previous example, we were using baking and pathogen survival. Yes, baking is intended to kill off the pathogen, but let's say I'm making ground meat sausage, and maybe it's a raw product. So let's think this through again. Is the processing step listed in column 1 designed to eliminate or reduce the hazard? Mixing, no. So if it's no, continue to column 6. Will a subsequent step eliminate or reduce the hazard to an acceptable level? So again, let's say I'm selling raw sausage, like a Johnsonville or a maple leaf breakfast sausage, the sort of raw sausage that you're going to cook at home. And there's no additional cook step. So the issue is no, I do not have an additional step. Continue to column 7. Could a control measure be used to eliminate or reduce the hazard to an acceptable level? So again, begs the question, can I ever find a supplier who is going to supply me with meat that is reasonably free of pathogens? Well, we just saw CFIA has approved irradiation of meat in Canada, but we know that there's also desirable or not desirable effects from irradiating meat, and it can cause some flavor defects. So, the likelihood of us going that route is no, but it is possible. If we were to say yes, we would have to identify and include that control measure in our previous forms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They would need to be revised to reflect those changes. So let's say I decided to go with irradiated meat that had been provided with a certificate of analysis indicating it was free of pathogens and blah, blah, blah. I would have to be changing that in my incoming ingredient. But we know irradiated meat tastes weird and it's going to be much more costly. So yes, maybe we do note that there's going to be a possibility of pathogen carried forward. If we do not have a control measure, we have to list it on Form 7. So that would be our example if we were using the example of a raw sausage product where we're mixing and we're improperly managing the time. Now let's think conversely. I'm going to erase these. Let's think conversely. Now we're going to mix, and at a later step we've got a cook step. Cooking. Because now it's not a raw sausage. Maybe it's a frozen, pre-cooked sausage ready to eat that perhaps is in a sandwich type product or some sort of frozen application. So now we're going to cook that sausage, and let's think it through now. We're still thinking about this mix step, and we're going to think about the decision-making tree here. Just double check my time here. Mixing step. So we've got the pathogen there. The risk is still high. Is a GMP controlling this hazard? GMP is not controlling this hazard. Is the contamination with the hazard going to occur in excess of the acceptable level? Yes, it is. Is the processing step listed in column 1 designed? No, it is not designed to eliminate or reduce that hazard, so no. Will a subsequent step eliminate or reduce this hazard to an acceptable level? Aha, yes. So we know in this case we're going to be mixing the sausage, but then we're going to be cooking it. And it will be an RTE product in theory on completion of this. So if yes, the subsequent step is the CCP, and it will be cooking, and perhaps, I don't know what number step it is, step X. So list this step, ensure this information is included when you reach that process step on this form. So when we get down to the cooking step, we need to make sure that this hazard is also listed here. And now when we go through and do this cooking step, let me just make this a tiny bit smaller so we can see these column headings. Cooking, the risk is high. Does a GMP control the hazard? No. Is the contamination going to occur in excess of acceptable level? Yes. Is the processing step listed in column 1? Oh, is this? Yes. Yes. Cooking is designed to reduce pathogen loads in your product. If yes, the step is a CCP, and we carry on to column 8. And again, listing your CCPs in order. CCP, this is our first CCP, so it will be 1. If you have multiple CCPs, you would list them in numeric order. CCP 1, CCP 2, CCP 3, and so on. And then we're going to rate it with a B because it is a biological hazard. Got it? Got it.